Elara Voss stood at the center, her lean frame silhouetted against the vast expanse of drifting clouds and distant skylands. Below them, the ever-shifting borders of Skyfold writhed like restless tides, each landmass an unclaimed prize and a potential spark for war. Beside her, Yorick Thorn's rugged presence was a stark contrast, sun-bleached hair tousled by the chamber's subtle ventilation, his scarred eye fixed on the gathering of rival faction representatives. The air was thick with unspoken threats and layered promises, the tension palpable enough to taste. "They won't make this easy," Yarek muttered, voice low but laced with resolve. "Every one of them wants more than they're willing to admit." Elara nodded, her sharp eyes flicking over the assembled faces, hardened mercenaries, calculating politicians, and ambitious explorers, all cloaked in the veneer of civility. "Then we make them see the cost of refusal." A polished mahogany table lay between them, an ancient map spread across its surface. The fragile parchment was a relic from a time when Skyfold's skies were less contested, its edges curling with age. Elara's fingers traced the faded lines, mapping the drifting borders that defined their world. Each shift in the map was a reminder that nothing remained constant. Territories claimed today might be lost tomorrow. "The shifting borders are both our challenge and our opportunity," she said softly, eyes meeting Yarek's. "We need alliances, but trust is scarce." Yorick grunted in agreement, folding his arms. "Trust isn't given, it's earned in the skies." Before the talks began, Lena Oris moved quietly to a small console, her fingers dancing with practiced precision. An expert in signal interception, Lena was the crew's unseen guardian, her work critical to navigating the treacherous political waters. As the delegates exchanged opening pleasantries, Lena's face tightened. A coded message blinked on her screen. "Elara," Lena's voice was steady but urgent. "I'm intercepting chatter from the Black Talon faction. They're mobilizing a strike team. They intend to break the truce before dawn." The room seemed to still, the weight of her words settling like a storm cloud. Elara's mind raced. The delicate balance of power was fracturing, and the consequences would ripple across Skyfold. "We need to act," Elara said, her tone resolute. "If the Black Talon breaks this peace, it won't just be a skirmish, it could ignite a full-scale war." Yorick's jaw clenched. "They underestimate how ready we are." Negotiations resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Each faction's representative now spoke with sharper edges, their words veiled threats. Elara and Yarek worked in tandem, she with her calm, measured diplomacy, he with his instinctive understanding of the pirate code and power plays. The chamber vibrated softly as airships passed beneath, their engines a constant reminder of the volatile world beyond. Elara caught herself studying Yorick's profile, the way his scar caught the light, the tension in his stance. Despite their differences and the mistrust that had shadowed their alliance, they were bound by a shared goal to navigate the crosswinds of power and protect their crew. Hours passed in a delicate dance of concessions and challenges. Elara's voice remained steady, her resourcefulness tested as she countered veiled ultimatums with reasoned appeals. Garrick's quick wit and unyielding presence flanked her, lending weight to their position. But just as a tentative agreement formed, Lena's fingers flew over the console again. "New intel. The strike is imminent." Elara's eyes narrowed. "Then we prepare to meet it head-on." The chamber's glass walls shimmered with the light of the setting sun, casting long shadows over the map, the shifting borders of Skyfold mirrored in the uncertain alliances within. The fragile peace they forged today would decide the fate of the skies tomorrow. As the delegates rose, tension crackling like static in the air, Elara exchanged a glance with Yorick. The path ahead was perilous, but together they would face the coming storm. The crosswinds of Skyfold were unforgiving, but they would navigate them or be lost to the skies forever. "Stay sharp," Elara said quietly, as the chamber doors sealed behind the departing factions. Yorick smirked, the shadow of a grin breaking through his usual stoicism. Wouldn't have it any other way. Outside, the skies darkened with the promise of conflict, and the true campaign for Skyfold's future began in earnest. Outside, the clouds churned in a roiling mass of grey and white, as if the heavens themselves were conspiring to swallow the expedition whole. Inside the cramped communications room, Lena Oris sat hunched over her console, the glow of flickering screens casting sharp shadows across her focused face. Her fingers danced over the controls, tuning frequencies, filtering static, listening for anything out of the ordinary. "There," Lena murmured, her breath barely above a whisper as a crackling signal broke through the storm's roar. The encrypted chatter was faint but unmistakable code words and patterns that only a practiced ear could detect. She adjusted the filters, isolating the transmission from the cacophony of atmospheric noise. Incoming transmission masked, but it's definitely hostile. Across the ship, Elara Voss stood at the helm, her sharp eyes scanning the swirling clouds through the thick glass viewport. The storm had come faster than predicted, a violent front sweeping across the floating continent of Skyfold, and with it, the veil that would conceal their enemies. Her lean hands clenched the rail, knuckles white, as she felt the familiar surge of adrenaline tempered by the steady discipline that had kept her alive through countless dangers. "Lena," Elara called over the comms, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her chest. "What are we dealing with?" "Encrypted signals," Lena replied, fingers flying across her console. "Captain Riven Kale's fleet. They're coordinating an ambush. It's coming through the northern currents, hidden inside the storm." Ilara's eyes narrowed. The shifting borders of Skyfold were treacherous, but this was a new level of peril. "Yorick, get to the bridge. We need to be ready for evasive maneuvers. Tauren, mobilize the security teams. We're not going down without a fight." Jurek Thorn appeared moments later, his rugged frame filling the doorway. His sun-bleached hair was damp from the humidity, and the scar over his left eye seemed to deepen under the harsh lighting. "Storm's a hell of a cover," he muttered, gripping the controls. "But I'm not letting Kale catch us off guard." Myra Solon joined them, her slender fingers clutching a datapad projecting faint, flickering glyphs, ancient symbols tied to the very technology that kept the Skylands afloat. "These symbols," she said, eyes wide with a mix of fascination and concern, "could relate to the mechanisms controlling the air currents. If Kale's fleet understands this, the storm becomes a weapon in his hands." Tauren Vex, broad-shouldered and scarred, moved swiftly to his post, barking orders and readying the defense. "No surprises," he growled. "Not on my watch." The celestial wraith lurched as Yorick expertly guided the ship through the turbulent currents, weaving between towering cloud formations that masked the movements of unseen foes. The crew held their breath in tight coordination, every second a test of skill and nerve. Lena's voice crackled over the comms, her updates a lifeline in the swirling chaos. "Multiple contacts detected," she warned. "They're closing fast, using the storm's cover." Ilara's mind raced through scenarios etch, more dangerous than the last. The storm was both shield and trap, a shifting veil that could either save them or doom them all. Trust wavered even within her own crew. The earlier betrayals still cast long shadows, and every signal intercepted felt like another reminder that danger lurked not only outside but within. The battle that awaited was not yet visible, but the tension was palpable. The celestial wraith sliced through the storm's heart, a fragile beacon of hope amid the tempest. Elara squared her shoulders, the weight of leadership settling firmly on her. "Hold steady," she commanded. "We face the storm and whatever hides within it together." Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the swirling clouds like ghostly specters. Somewhere beyond the veil, the enemy waited. Inside the ship, hearts beat fast, minds sharpened. The veil of clouds was no longer just a natural phenomenon, was the battlefield itself, a shifting arena where trust, courage, and quick thinking would determine who survived the skies of Skyfold. And as the first shadowy shapes emerged through the mist, the campaign surged forward into its most perilous chapter yet. Her sharp eyes scanned the star charts spread before her, fingers tracing the intricate patterns of constellations that had once guided her with unwavering certainty. Tonight, however, the stars seemed clouded, their familiar glow refracted by the weight of doubt pressing against her chest. The narrow beams of flickering lanterns cast shifting shadows across the room, mirroring the shadows of uncertainty that had taken root within her. Outside, the restless winds of Skyfold whispered against the hull, a constant reminder of the volatile skies they had chosen to navigate. The air was thick with anticipation and unease, a tension that had settled over the crew like a gathering storm. Elara's mind replayed the recent setbacks, the whispered suspicions, the betrayals that had frayed the fragile bonds holding the expedition together. Her leadership, once unchallenged, now stood at a precarious edge, threatened by the very people she had brought together. The door creaked open abruptly, the sharp clatter of boots on the metal floor cutting through the stillness. Yarrick Thorne stepped into the room, his sun-bleached hair tousled from the ever-present wind, eyes blazing with a restless fire that refused to be dimmed. His rugged features were set in a scowl, the familiar scar over his left eye deepening as he took in the charts and maps that lay scattered across the table. "You're moving too slow, Voss," Yorick said, his voice rough with frustration. "The skies don't wait for careful plans. We need action, not hesitation." Elara met his gaze steadily, though inwardly she felt the sting of his words. "Rushing headlong into danger won't save us, Yarrick. We need precision, not recklessness." The tension between them crackled, thick and unyielding. Their words, sharp as the jagged edges of the skylands they sought to reclaim, filled the cramped space with a palpable energy. For a moment, the room seemed to shrink, the gulf between their leadership styles stretching wide and threatening to split the expedition apart. "You think I don't know what I'm doing?" Yarrick challenged, stepping closer, the heat of his presence almost tangible. "I've flown through storms that would tear your maps to shreds. I'm not here to babysit a broken navigator." Illyra's jaw tightened. "I'm not broken. I'm cautious because I've seen what happens when we're not." Their eyes locked, the unspoken history between them simmering beneath the surface, a blend of respect, rivalry, and a fragile trust neither was ready to fully acknowledge. The argument broke abruptly as Myra Solin entered quietly, her slender frame silhouetted against the faint glow of the corridor. Her pale skin seemed almost luminescent in the low light, and the intricate tools she carried clinked softly with each step. Mira's calm presence cut through the charged atmosphere. "Perhaps we're focusing too much on the divide," she suggested gently. "There's still much we don't understand about the lost sky. I've been examining some of the recent data, and there are patterns that might offer us an advantage. We combine careful navigation with bold action." Elara glanced at Mira, the scholar's steady gaze offering a balm to her frayed nerves. "What have you found?" Mira moved to the table, spreading out a series of delicate diagrams and star maps over the worn surface. These readings suggest ancient technologies embedded within the cloud's devices that could stabilize air currents or even shift territorial boundaries. If we can harness this knowledge, it might change everything. Garrick's scowl softened as he leaned in, the tension momentarily easing. Sounds like the edge we need. Elara allowed herself a small nod, the fragile seed of hope taking root. Yet beneath it all, the storm of challenges loomed, large betrayals yet to be uncovered. Political tensions simmering like distant thunder, and the ever-present threat of Captain Rivencale's fleet. Later that night, under the vast canopy of stars, Elara found herself on the upper deck, the cool night air brushing against her skin. The endless expanse of Skyfold stretched around her, clouds swirling like ghosts in the moonlight. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Yarek approaching, his usual bravado tempered by a rare quietness. "You're not alone in this," he said quietly, breaking the silence. "I may be brash, but I trust you, Elara, more than I thought I would." Elara met his gaze, her own vulnerability laid bare in the moon's pale glow. "I've been afraid to trust, to let go of the past. But maybe it's time to stop fighting the storm inside and face it together." Garrick smiled faintly, a gesture that held the promise of a new alliance forged in the heart of the tempest. The swirling clouds around them seemed to pause, as if the skies themselves held their breath. As the chapter drew to a close, the expedition's leaders stood side by side, watching the shifting horizons. The edge of trust was thin, but it was enough to carry them forward into the unknown, into danger, and, perhaps, into redemption. But the skies of Skyfold were unforgiving, and the coming days would test that trust in ways neither could yet imagine. The storm was gathering, and there was no turning back. The tension between caution and daring, between past regrets and future hopes, had reached a breaking point. Yet beneath the surface, a fragile alliance had begun to take shape, one that might just be strong enough to withstand the chaos to come. The edge of trust was razor thin, and on it, the fate of Skyfold balanced precariously. What would happen when that trust was pushed to its limits? The answer awaited them in the skies ahead. Elara Voss stood at the edge of the clearing, her sharp eyes scanning the fractured stones and cryptic carvings that told stories older than any map could capture. The air was cool and thick with the scent of damp moss and mineral dust. A silence broken only by the faint hum of wind threading through forgotten corridors. Myra Solon moved with practiced grace to the center of the ruins, her slender fingers brushing aside layers of dust and lichen to reveal a metallic panel embedded flush with the cracked stone floor. The panel bore intricate glyphs, their lines intertwining like veins of ancient energy. Myra's silver hair caught the dim light as she knelt, the tools at her belt clinking softly as she worked to decipher the symbols. "This isn't just a relic," Myra murmured, her voice barely above a breath. "It's a mechanism, dormant but alive." Elara stepped closer, her heart tightening with a mixture of awe and unease. "Alive? How?" Myra's eyes shimmered with the reflection of the glyphs. "There's a power here, beneath the surface. It's been waiting, silent, for centuries. I can feel it pulsing beneath my fingertips. If we can unlock it, it could change everything." Jurek Tornes' voice cut across the clearing, rough and skeptical. "Or it could kill us all." Torin Vex stood nearby, his broad frame tense eyes scanning the mist-shrouded horizon like a predator sensing unseen threats. "We don't know what we're dealing with. We have to be cautious." Elara nodded, feeling the weight of leadership settle heavier than ever. This was no longer just a mission to reclaim lost territory. It was a gamble with forces far older and more dangerous than any rival captain or political faction. Back aboard the flagship, The cramped lab was a hive of quiet activity. Mira spread the artifacts and star charts across the worn table, the flickering lantern light casting long shadows on the walls. The crew gathered around, a hush falling over them as Mira laid out her findings. "These fragments are part of a larger system," she explained, pointing to the patterns that matched the glyphs on the panel. "It's advanced technology, far beyond anything we've encountered. It's designed to manipulate the very sky's currents, gravity, even the shifting borders of Skyfold itself." Elara's fingers drummed lightly on the table. "If that's true, it could give us control over the contested skylands. But at what cost?" Myra's gaze was steady but somber. "Activating it could destabilize the region, or worse, trigger ancient defenses we don't understand." Yarek paced near the doorway, the tension in his posture unmistakable. "We've faced sky pirates and storms, but this is different. This is a gamble with the unknown." Torin's voice was low, almost a growl. "We protect the crew at all costs. If this technology threatens that, we destroy it." The night deepened outside, thick clouds swirling like restless spirits around the floating continent. On the deck, Yarek and Torin stood side by side, the vast expanse of shifting skies stretching endlessly before them. The creak of rigging and distant thunder underscored the fragile calm, a reminder that danger lurked both in the air and within their own ranks. Elara joined them, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the sky met the clouds in a seamless, silent boundary. "We have to decide what kind of future we want for Skyfold," she said quietly. "One ruled by fear and control, or one shaped by hope and discovery." As twilight bled into night, the crew gathered around a flickering campfire on the edge of the skyland. The flames danced, casting flickering shadows across faces etched with resolve and doubt. Mira broke the silence, her voice steady but heavy with the weight of her revelation. "The secrets we've uncovered could bring power to those willing to claim it. But they could also unleash destruction we cannot imagine. We stand at the crossroads, and the choices we make here will echo across the skies for generations." Elara met the eyes of her crew, feeling the pulse of hope and fear intertwined. The silent horizons ahead held promise and peril in equal measure. Their expedition was no longer just a campaign for lost lands. It was a journey into the heart of an ancient mystery that would test their courage, their trust, and the very fate of Skyfold itself. The wind whispered through the ruins, carrying with it a faint hum of awakening. Somewhere in the depths below, the ancient mechanism stirred, waiting for the moment when the past and future would collide. And Elara knew that moment was fast approaching. The skies held their breath. Maps lay sprawled across the broad wooden table, their edges curling from hours of use. Elara Voss stood over them, her sharp eyes tracing the trembling lines that marked the shifting borders of Skyfold's contested skylands. Around her, voices rose and fell in heated debate. The disparate members of her crew and their uneasy allies each pushing their own agendas like gusts of a restless wind. Garrick Thorne's voice cut through the din, brash and loud as always. "We can't keep dancing around these factions, Elara. They'll bleed us dry if we don't take a stand." He leaned heavily against the table, his sun-bleached hair catching the flickering lamplight. The scar above his left eye a silent testament to battles fought and survived. Elara met his gaze steadily. "And rushing into open conflict will only fracture what little unity we have. We need leverage, not recklessness." Her voice was calm but carried the weight of command, a stark contrast to Yarek's fiery impatience. Mira Solon, standing quietly to one side, adjusted a delicate instrument that hummed softly, a relic recovered from one of the lost lands. Her pale fingers moved with practiced precision, calibrating the device to detect shifts in the atmospheric currents that could reveal hidden strongholds or approaching fleets. "The ancient technologies we've uncovered could tip the balance," she said softly, "but only if we keep the expedition intact long enough to use them." Torin Vex paced the room's perimeter, his broad shoulders casting long shadows. His piercing blue eyes scanned every face, every gesture, searching for signs of dissent or danger. "We're vulnerable," he murmured, voice low and tense. "The factions don't just want Skylands, they want us broken." Elara swallowed hard. Her own doubts gnawed at her memories of past mistakes, of lives lost under her command. Yet here, amid the swirling chaos of political intrigue and shifting allegiances, she found a flicker of resolve. This was her chance to reclaim not only the Skylands, but her honor. The meeting stretched on, alliances proposed and rejected in rapid succession. Some offered support with strings attached. Others openly plotted to undermine the expedition. Lena Oris, stationed near the communications console, intercepted whispered transmissions, tangled web of encrypted messages, hinting at betrayals yet to unfold. Yorick's frustration boiled over during one particularly heated exchange. "We need to act, not just talk. These factions respect strength, not paper treaties." He slammed a fist on the table, the sound echoing like thunder. Elara met his intensity with quiet steel. "Strength without strategy is folly. We're fighting for more than territory. We're fighting for the survival of Skyfold itself." Outside, the floating continent shifted beneath them, clouds swirling like restless spirits. Borders redrawn by unseen hands threatened to collapse hard-won gains. Every decision Elara made rippled through the fragile network of alliances, risking everything the expedition had built. Late into the night, as the crew retired and the lamps dimmed to soft glows, Elara stood alone at the deck's railing. The wind tugged at her braid, carrying the distant rumble of thunder and the faint cries of sky pirates far below. Garrick joined her quietly, the usual bravado replaced by a rare solemnity. "We'll need each other," he said, voice low, "no matter how much we want to deny it." Elara nodded slowly, the weight of leadership settling over her like the heavy clouds above. Trust was a fragile thing in the lawless skies of Skyfold, but without it, they would all fall. As the first light of dawn painted the horizon with streaks of blood red and gold, the expedition braced itself for the storms ahead, both in the skies and in the hearts of those who called them home. The shifting alliances were more than political maneuvering. They were a crucible that would forge or shatter the future of Skyfold. And Elara Voss, once a fallen star, now stood at the center of it all, ready to face whatever came next. The wind whispered promises and threats alike, carrying the fragile hope of a new era, if only they could survive long enough to claim it.